Alright, so today I have here a motherboard. I needed a working X79 motherboard for a project, and if you go look on eBay, any X79 motherboards from reputable brands like Asus, MSI, ASRock, if they're still working, they're going for absurdly high prices. So I kind of turned to the Chinese market to see if I could find something, and I found this on AliExpress. I've seen other channels look at these boards, and they've worked, and that's really all I need at this point. So I figured for this video, I'll open it, take a look at it, and we'll see if we can get a build with it. So let's start by opening this up. So this is an X79 board from a company called HUANANZHI, and what's interesting about this board is it's X79, so it's on a DDR3 platform, but it has two M.2 slots. So let's open it up and take a look at it. Cardboard. And then here we have the actual motherboard. Comes in an anti-static bag. It's actually pretty legit for what it is. So we'll take a look at the motherboard in just a moment. But we actually have some accessories. These are SATA cables. This is a back. It goes in the. I think this is for water cooling. If you want to hook up water cooling to it, it has something to do with CPU coolers. I've never used this, so I'm not sure exactly. And then okay, so yeah, I'm pretty sure this is for. That kind of is my theory, is that this is something to do with water cooling, I believe. Documentation, I believe this is, yeah, it's all in Chinese. Oh wait, no, it has some stuff in English. Okay. So you got your manual and all that stuff. And then you get a tiny little syringe of thermal compound, but I have my own. So that's what comes in the box. So let's take a look at the actual motherboard here. So it comes in the anti-static bag. Take it out. Alright. So up here we obviously have our X79 socket. What you'll notice about this that's different from many other X79 boards is that other than unlike typical motherboards that have 8 RAM slots, this one only has 4. The listing on AliExpress said that it can run memory in quad channel, so you get 1 DIMM of DRAM per channel. So that's the configuration. 24-pin power port on the side, so make sure your case can accommodate that. We have our 8-pin CPU power up top here. And then when you get down here, we have our first M.2 slot and the second M.2 slot. I believe this one can support NVMe. However, the bottom one, according to the listing, can only support SATA. So if you want to use an NVMe drive and get the full benefit from that, use the top one. Don't use the bottom one. And then we have two 16X slots, and then one X slot, and then is that bottom one? I think it was a 2X slot, I believe. We have our 7-segment display here. If you order one of these off AliExpress and it comes from China, they will not be able to ship it with a CMOS battery, so you're going to need to provide that yourself. I have plenty, so it's not a real worry. And then we have our 6 SATA ports there. This is the HUANANZHI heatsink on the chipset. One thing to keep in mind is that these motherboards use server chipsets, so they're intended for Xeons, and I believe they will take the Extreme Edition i7s, but for reasons that we're going to get into in a moment, that's not really a good idea. And then when we move to the side, we have our PS2 ports on the far left, 2 USB 3.0s, 6 USB 2.0s, that is a gigabit LAN, and then your various microphone, headphone, all that good stuff. What I do like is that this is a nice integrated I/O shield. Some non-rip-off board, non-recycled boards actually don't have that nowadays, so that's nice to see. And then up here on the VRM, we actually have, I believe there are two little fans in here that you can see the power connector right there. And they'll spin up on startup to cool the VRMs for this thing. Now, compared to other motherboards, this probably is not going to be enough for overclocking like an Extreme Edition i7, like a 3930K or something like that. This is probably not going to be enough for that. So it's really meant for these like lower clock speed Xeons, and that's what we'll be using in the build today. So I'm going to kind of get this prepped, put a CMOS battery in it, and then I'll show you what we're going to be building today. Okay, so for testing this motherboard, I'm going to be using a total of 32 gigs of DDR3 1600 RAM. To test the M.2 slot, I have a 256 gig SSD from Hynix, as well as the Xeon E5 2670 V2. This is a 10-core, 20-thread processor. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of this installed on this motherboard. Okay, now we have our motherboard prepped. There are a few final additions. I do need to put a cooler on it. I actually have a cooler that will mount on this socket, which is good. The motherboard did not, it came from China, so it did not ship with a CMOS battery. I'll have to put one in there. But I'm going to get that stuff done, and we're going to be ready to put this thing into a case and get this build going. So I went ahead and finished getting the board prepped. I put a CMOS battery in here. Of course, we have the SSD screwed in. This is a locked 2.5 gigahertz CPU, this Xeon. So I just slapped a Hyper 212 Evo on there. That should be plenty, honestly. So I think we're going to be good to go. I did a review on this case from ES Gaming a while back. We're going to be putting the motherboard in here, and we're just going to be turning the whole thing into a build. So I should probably go through the rest of the parts. For my power supply, this is a 600 watt from EVGA 80 Plus. It's not bronze or gold or anything, but I'm not expecting this thing to suck up a whole lot of power, so this should be perfectly fine. And then for graphics, since Xeons don't have onboard graphics, I'm just going to be using this MSI RX 460. Low powered, but it's got DisplayPort, HDMI, and DVI. And honestly, I don't really need a lot of horsepower for this thing. It's going to be a workstation machine, so you don't need much GPU. This should be more than plenty. And this is really just to test kind of the capabilities of the motherboard rather than anything else. So let's go ahead and get this put into the case. I've got my screws here provided by the case maker. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Alright, I think we're good here. We've got the power supply in, graphics card in, everything's all hooked up. Front panel, I hope, is good. We'll have to test that in a minute. But yeah, I think we're looking pretty good. One thing I needed to mention, I didn't mention this in my case review. These PCI Express plates are cut out on this case. They're not removable. So once they're gone, they're gone. You can't put them back. This style needs to die and never come back. Like, I don't know what the point, like, this is them when I pulled them out. You see how bent those are? They did not want to come out of that case. It took forever to wrench these things out. So just have it open. I mean, I know it looks nicer, but it's just not worth the hassle. Just have them open if it's cheaper, because it's a manufacturing cost thing. I understand that, but just leave them open. It's not worth the effort. But yeah, I think we got this pretty much all finished up. So I'm going to get the case panel back on, and we'll take this thing for a test drive. I almost forgot the most important part of this. I couldn't forget to include you guys in the most satisfying part of this entire video. Ready? Yeah, now it's official. Okay, so just an update. The graphics card I picked out, the RX 460, for some reason was not posting. So I replaced it with an RX 580 and it got it to post. So we're in the BIOS. 2500 megahertz you see right up there, that is correct for this CPU. This is an old school like server BIOS because it's a server chipset. So everything looks good to me. So for boot, let's see if it can detect it. So it detects it is detecting my USB with Linux Mint installed on it. It is not detecting my SATA SSD. So I'm gonna have to get into the installer and make sure that it's detecting that correctly. It could just be that this SSD does not have an OS on it yet, but it does not seem to be showing up. But I think it's going to be okay. But so far, so good. Everything looks okay. So I'm going to boot into the installer and see if we can get an OS on this thing. Okay, I had to replace the SSD. I don't know if it's because it was a SATA M.2 SSD or not, but I replaced it with an NVMe M.2 SSD, and now it's working. So that other SSD, it's either because it's SATA or it's dead, I'm not sure, but it looks like it got the new one got recognized, and we are now copying the files over. So that's good news. So let's see when it's finished. Okay, I'm actually really excited. Check this out. Alright, so I look at system info on Linux Mint. We successfully installed Mint on our M.2 SSD. So this is an X79 CPU running an NVMe M.2 SSD. That's pretty crazy. So if you look, we got Linux Mint. You see this is the version, everything. Our processor, E5 2670 V2 at 2.5 gigahertz. All 10 cores are being detected, that's all correct. Memory, 32 gigs. Hard drive, it's an SSD, but 256 gigs, that's correct. And then even the graphics card, it's the 580, but it detects that it's in that same family. And then over here I installed PyTop, and as you can see, it is detecting all 20 cores. I should say threads. It's a 10-core, 20-thread CPU. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. I have the system. I had to do some diagnosing some problems here, but we're good. And then my biggest issue was the system's been running for about half an hour now, and the VRM is not even warm. It's maybe room temperature. So it looks like, since this is a very low-powered chip, the VRM is going to be doing a fine job of keeping it cool. So yeah, that's basically it. I'm very, very happy I bought this motherboard. You know, you look at this Chinese kind of hacky motherboard, and you think it might not work, but I mean, from what I've been seeing, you would not be able to tell that you're not using an authentic X79 motherboard. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, let me know what you think. If you like the video, leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.